This is Adam Watson.
Robert Diaz.
Catherine Richardson, also known as Catherine Myers, also known as Kate.
And you're listening to the Darkslinger Mafia podcast. So that was an awful lot of aliases there, Kate. Why do you have so many?
Well, when I first started in with you and Darkslinger, I went by Catherine Myers, which is my maiden name. Mm-hmm. I since got married to Richardson, so people may not recognize that. But also, friends call me Kate, so there you go.
And some of the artists know you as Kat.
This is true, yes.
Yeah, because that's what your Facebook page said. Yeah, we've actually discussed that before on the podcast, which you would know if you ever heard it. Because there's an episode earlier on where I was mentioning all of your different names that you're known as. So when I said your last name, Robert didn't know who I was talking about.
I'm a woman of mystery.
Could have been. There's too many people with too many names.
Yeah. And he's like, all these names for, what did you call it?
Like hippies names.
A short, little, angry ball of fury or something like that.
That's an accurate description,
yeah,
honestly.
Something close to that.
Yeah, it was something like that. Anyways, Kate, you're the first person that's been on the Darkslinger Mafia podcast that's actually worked for Darkslinger Comics besides me.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's kind of surprising, actually.
Yeah, in ways. Yeah. But so far, it's mainly been Robert and Elias as my co-hosts. And then I've done interviews with a few different creators. So.
Well, you've done some collaborations with some of those creators.
No, not that I've interviewed.
Oh, okay.
I interviewed Lucas, Floyd, Beth, Sam Quinton. I think that's about it. We did interview Paul and Jason for the Comic Collaborative podcast. Okay. So the other podcast I'm on with Ben Kreger, we interviewed Paul, who we had both worked with. Right. So maybe that's what you were thinking.
Possibly. Well, I mean, it's kind of a small operation, so I can see that. And
so you want to tell the audience what you did for me?
Oh, so I was an editor for Adam for quite a while. I worked on EBM was the starting.
El Bovine Muerte. We don't use the acronyms in the show.
Was the first one I
specific.
started with. And then Ghost Assassin, I think I picked up quite shortly after that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I worked a bit with Stefano on several of the projects we did with him.
Yeah, you worked with Stefano on Chronicles originally. And then, but Tony, I always did the edits.
Right.
And eventually you did the edits on Marco for
I did.
Diary of a Dead Man. Did you ever work on Principalities?
I did.
Okay.
Yes. I think I've worked on most all of them.
Okay. So. Yeah, those issues are actually being redone. Were you aware of that?
No, I wasn't.
Yeah, I got a submission late last year, maybe June, July, something like that. When did I start working with Melissa?
It wasn't that long ago.
Okay. I'm going to say it was probably July, August, something like that. There. But she started doing covers for it, which I think I've showed you.
Yes.
And they were just exactly what I had always had in mind for the series. So I said, the best thing I can do is actually go back, revise my scripts, because those are something I wrote back in like 2008. I can do better now. Go back, revise my scripts, and completely just redo what's been done, because I only had 2 issues, and I was already planning on changing the art style on the 3rd issue. Yeah, so instead of doing that, why not just go back and just change the whole thing? And one of the things I didn't like about what I had done originally was it was a lot more like a superhero team book. I was making it too much like X-Men or the Avengers or something like that. And that's not the vision I had for that book to begin with. So now it actually reads more like religious fiction, which is what it was meant to be in the first place.
That is what you had stated that you wanted it to be. But I did always kind of refer to that one actually as your superhero book.
Right, and it wasn't supposed to be. The Pauper is actually supposed to be the closest to a superhero book that I do. Even though he's a street-level vigilante, not a superhero. He doesn't have any powers.
But. Well, in society, they often confuse superheroes with vigilantes.
Right. Punisher and Batman get grouped into superhero categories. They
absolutely do. So, in that aspect, it's accurate.
Right.
They're super because they're heroes.
Well, they're super vigilantes, but,
Right.
That's too much to say. I'm not going to say that.
So, news since the last podcast that you were on is the Ghost Assassin Kickstarter successfully funding.
Yay!
So the present, I'm just waiting to get on the funds to be delivered by Kickstarter. Everybody who pledged went through, which is phenomenal because normally when you do a Kickstarter, you get at least 2 or 3 dropped pledges after the campaign ends. But I've checked it and every single one of them went through. So that amount that's shown, that's the amount I'm going to get minus the Kickstarter fees. So that's pretty phenomenal in and of itself, really and truly.
Yeah, and good job to everybody who contributed and donated. So,
But now that the funds have been delivered, I'm going to be doing a Kickstarter exclusive update either tomorrow, which we're recording this on Saturday. So either tomorrow, which is Sunday, or the day this posts, which is Monday, that will include the link to the PDF. So the first stage of delivery will already be done within 2 days. I'm just going through to make sure that I'm absolutely happy with all the lettering first and all the design is perfect, and then that's going to be done. Then within the next 2 weeks, everything's going to be ordered up for that.
Mine was one of the funds that didn't go through on the first day.
Not the first day, but I wasn't stressed. See, the funny thing is there were 4 backers that didn't go through on the first day, but don't get stressed if it's just the first day because Kickstarter sends out a message telling them to correct their pledges. And I had seen that it was you and then one person that I didn't know, so I wasn't sure if that one would go through or not, but the other 2 that didn't go through on the first day, I knew both of them. And they sent me messages like right away through Facebook saying, hey, that's going to be fixed tomorrow. So, no big deal on that one. But in any case, Ghost Assassin #1 will be a reality.
Couple months?
No time. Couple months. I would say probably a month or less, honestly.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, and so at the same time, I'm going to try and get a reprint on Chronicles of Von Helsing #3 and #2. And within the next month, I'm going to be releasing the physical edition of El Bovine Muerte #1.5. That'll be coming out.
That's good news.
Yeah, and the Patreon should be launching either by this Friday or the one following, depending on how busy I get getting ready for the Frankenstein comic show, which is going to be happening this coming Saturday in Portland, Oregon.
Where at?
Is it the Elks Lodge or the Eagle Lodge?
It's some sort of animal. I don't know.
I will be posting the address.
Or is it the Moose Lodge?
I don't think it's the Moose Lodge. I'll be posting the address in the show notes. How about that?
That works.
But
Yeah.
if you get online, and well, you're already online if you're listening to this, but if you type in Frankenstein comic book swap, it's going to come up.
Put it in there. People are lazy. They just want that
I'm
link.
going to put it in there.
Great.
You shouldn't call our listeners lazy. We have the most active listeners of any podcast.
It's a fun little show. A whole bunch of crap to look
It is.
at.
It's fantastic. You haven't been there yet, right?
I haven't. I think that I might be trying to head out this Saturday. Hopefully.
Yeah, it's a great show. You can find so much stuff for cheap there. I bought just like boxes of trade paperbacks and hardcovers for $1 a piece there before.
Great. I got a couple of things on my list I need to be looking for, so
Yeah.
I'll be heading out.
What are you looking for?
Oh, man. So, I'm a huge Fables fan. I've read all of it, but I own virtually none. And I like to collect things.
Right.
And then I got around to reading the second issue of this comic called Shame, and I'm looking for
Shame?
the third one. Yeah.
Okay, haven't read that
It's
yet.
a very indie, very visually appealing.
There is an actual shocking amount of independent stuff that you can find in Frankenstein, because a lot of times when it's a dealer-oriented show, you find Marvel and DC, and a few, kind of random like Image, some Valiant, some this or that. There's a lot of dealers who set up a Frankenstein that actually bring very independent stuff, and some of which is pretty hard to find at other shows.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. The
Not that I'm a
first
complete snob. I love
issue-
my
or-
Marvel, too.
Right.
X-Men all the way, so.
The first show of Frankenstein that Robert and I did last year, because I did 3 in total, I was actually able to find 4 of the 5 issues for Scud Tales from the Vending Machine.
Oh, fantastic.
And what I pay for those, like $1 a piece?
Not
something
much
like
at
that.
all. You got really excited.
Yeah, I got really excited because those are something I
That's
never
exciting.
ever see at shows, and it might even been 50 cents a piece that I found them for. I've been on the hunt for those for years, and I didn't want to pay like $5 to $10 a piece on
Right.
eBay or whatever it is. So to find those just in the wild and so cheaply, yep, I snatched those up quickly.
So it's like the amazing goodwill of comic shows.
In a lot of ways, yeah.
Fantastic.
The only thing to watch out for is people don't organize their stuff, and it's so annoying.
That aggravates both him and Alex.
I like a treasure hunt. I'm down with that.
I don't
That's fine.
I'll look for a while, but then at a certain point, I'm like, no, I'm done with your stuff.
Yeah,
No, I won't. I'll just go and go and go and go.
See, that's what's good about him is he'll go out and look through it all, and then I don't have to.
well,
Right.
see, here's the thing. I have how many long boxes sitting 10 feet away from us?
Too many.
And all of those have been organized by me. I have been organizing comics since I started selling comics, which was back in 1997. Buying collections and organizing them. Going through stuff that is not organized doesn't bother me in the least bit. The only problem I have is not sitting there organizing it as I'm going through it.
Organizing everybody else's stuff.
I'm sure they'd
to do
appreciate
that.
it.
They probably would.
Maybe they'll pay you a pittance.
Maybe.
Then the
They'll
next
give me
guy's going to
some
come
free
along
issues.
and look through it and then unorganize it
Right.
all.
You know that's going to happen. Because I check my boxes after every show to see what got unorganized. But that's the next show we're doing for sure. I'm taking a look at a lot of shows. There are so many that are happening this year, like every year. And there are actually quite a few I'm thinking of doing that aren't comic specific.
Like what?
I'm really contemplating doing Rustorama in Salem.
No
which is-
idea what that is.
It's like a Rat Rod show. It's put on by the Cherry City Bombers.
Oh, that's badass.
Yeah, and Floyd, he sets up there as an artist, and he thinks I do really well. And I think if I diversify what I can offer there, maybe have some like Chronicles of Von Helsing t-shirts made up, and go ahead and move forward with the second design for the pint glasses so that I have 2 different pint glasses available there, and kind of amp up the amount of those type of offerings I have, that I would probably for sure do well there. I'm not sure if just comics alone would do well.
I think your glassware would move.
I think glassware
the
to show like
glasses-
that would move really
The
well.
glasses are fantastic.
Yeah.
If anybody hasn't checked out the glasses, they definitely should. I have a couple myself. They're very durable,
I will need to.
and the designs are fantastic on them.
Yeah, they turned out so.
They did. They turned out so well.
I need to actually reprint them because after the last show we did, the Library Con, I am down to I think 20. So 20
Damn.
out of 200.
Can you get your stuff into that library? Did you talk to anyone about that?
They actually picked up Who Will Save the World
Oh, they did.
at the end of
Nice.
Sunday. Yeah.
Very nice. Another place to get it.
Right?
That was a really nice library.
Yeah, and one of the things I enjoyed, so on Saturday when Robert was with me, I knew about 3 to 4 o'clock was going to be a slow period, right? You've done enough shows, you know when it's going to be slow, right? So I went wandering off, found their graphic novel section, found a copy of Fairest Volume 3. I hadn't read that yet. Took it back to my table, read that in the last hour we had at the show, and then on Sunday I did the same thing with Volume 4. So I got all the more caught up on Fairest, which is a Fable spinoff. So it was pretty awesome just being at a show where you could just go take something and start reading it.
I remember you told me that. You were like, I can't do that at a regular con.
No.
Just take something off someone's table. Like,
Right.
like, hey, that's $15.
Yeah, Elias copied me and went and picked up an Alan Moore book. And
Nice. Which one?
I can't remember the name of it. It's one of the books he did for 2000 AD
Oh, okay.
when he was first starting out. But he's heard me talk about Alan Moore a lot. And I do the Alan Moore impression all the time, if you haven't heard it.
Do the Alan Moore impression. Do it.
I don't want to do
They
it on
wanna
the
hear it.
podcast.
Under pressure. People want to
It's under pressure.
He can't perform on the spot.
It doesn't work like that.
It's even better if you talk about the idea behind the fucked up shit that he writes in his voice.
You mean how I took a shit in the toilet this morning, and the movie maker came by, and he said, "That's a beautiful shit. I want to turn that into a movie." And I said, "That's not a movie. That's a shit in a toilet bowl. What are you thinking?"
Exactly.
Oh, man. I snorted. Oh, thank you. Thank you
You're
for
welcome. You're welcome.
I think you need to send
And
this
since I was
podcast
under
directly
pressure,
to
that
him.
definitely was not the best I could do. But
Better make sure he doesn't want, like, a cut or copyright issue.
No, he never wants cut when they make his movies. He doesn't want to cut out of those, so he won't want to. He won't want to cut out of a podcast that doesn't make any money. Come on. Yeah. So anyway, that's one of the shows I'm thinking about doing. There's lots of shows to choose from this year. As
small shows work well, though.
Yeah, I do really well at small shows, and I feel like you can build up a better fan base at small shows than big shows.
Yeah, because people aren't paying so much to get in the door.
They're not paying so much, and it's easier to be a big fish in a small pond than it is to be the little fish in a big pond.
And then you take all those people with you to the next show.
Yeah, I'm going to get on the waiting list for Crypticon still, but
God damn, do it already.
I know. I should have already done it. The thing is, if we showed up at Crypticon, I already have a fan base built there. There are people who come up looking for whatever the next issue is of whatever I've released, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that when you do Emerald City. Because even if somebody's looking for you, they can't find you in that sea of 75,000 plus people.
Oh, no, that place is just a shit show.
Right?
It's overwhelming. And then
it's completely overwhelming.
You've got all the cosplayers running around just causing a ruckus. And
right?
It makes it difficult to actually even
buy
walk,
anything.
And then the entry fee is just phenomenally crazy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
so
it's
once
insane.
you get into the show, you got like $5.
Right.
Yeah, so you really got to stretch your money onto what am I really wanting and really looking for. There's not a lot of opportunity to explore or be like, I'll try this out.
But I am thinking about returning to Emerald City Comic Con next year because if all goes well with the Kickstarters this year, according to what my plans are, I'll have enough issues of Ghost Assassin out this year that I'll probably be able to release the first collected edition by around that time next year. And if all goes accordingly with the Kickstarter for Chronicles Von Helsing hardcover, then I'll have a nice hardcover edition that'll be on my tables at that point too.
Which one's your next Kickstarter that you're thinking?
Okay, there are actually a few different options that are kind of being rolled around at the moment. I haven't pegged down exactly which one is going to be right now. But one of them that is coming up after I have all the pages colored is going to be Chronicles Von Helsing hardcover. This is going to collect issues number 1 through 5 and the Sally special. All of them are going to be colorized, and it's going to have new, fresh lettering because when I lettered those books, those were like my tester, beginner. I'm just kind of figuring out how to letter things, so the lettering looks like shit. I need to redo them.
It'll look better in color.
It will, yeah.
Sally's story will look fantastic.
Yeah. Joel's stuff always looks so amazing colored. But I think it's going to look a lot better colorized, and I've screwed around with the coloring quite a bit on Stefano's pages, and I think a nice flat, just kind of like not adding in a bunch of the effects that you would if it was going to be Ghost Assassin or even Obo Vine Morte, makes the pages work a lot better. It gives them a pop and brings out what everything is a lot better. There is potentially going to be 3 Chronicles Von Helsing Kickstarters this year in total.
That's quite a few.
It is. My hope is when everything is done with the fulfillment stage, that I will already have my next Kickstarter of the year ready to go.
Is one of them going to be like just straight glassware?
I don't think I'm going to do a Kickstarter for the glassware again. I did that one as a part of the Make 100 event.
Okay.
So if I had done Make 100 again this year, I probably would have done that. But I think what I'll probably do is just end up paying for that out of pocket. I'm in a slightly better financial state this year than I was last year. I'm kind of picky what I run through Kickstarter. And I don't want to run absolutely everything I ever make through there. You don't want to
flood it through there.
Yeah, I don't want to flood it through there. And at the moment, I'm trying to get these collected editions and some special one-shot issues created. Getting Ghost Assassin off to a good start with the first issue, I think, was important to do through Kickstarter. It gave me the funds to do that. But I don't see using it for every single issue of Ghost Assassin. So I might use it again when I do the collected edition. I don't really see why not to. So that's the current plan. What the other Chronicles Kickstarters are, I can't talk about quite yet.
So you're definitely considering doing Chronicles for the next Kickstarter?
The next Kickstarter will absolutely be a Chronicles project.
All right.
I'm just not sure which it's going to be between the hardcover and one that is going to feature Tony Morgan as both the writer and artist.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what order those two are going to go in, but, one of the two.
I think either one will work well.
I think so too.
The thing with just him sounds really cool from what you said so far.
Yeah. And I don't know how much I'm able to talk about that yet. That's actually something I need to talk to Tony about. And I prefer, honestly, to get him onto the podcast and have him talk about it since it's something that he wrote.
Right. I think that
would be a good one.
But the only thing I will state about it is that Tony very much has a deep connection with the character Jeannie Marie Von Helsing. And that's who this story is going to be about. So, because, he really wanted to do something with that character.
Sounds like it'll be even better.
Yeah.
Bring the passion into it.
Yeah. He loves that character. I love that character, but I honestly think Tony loves her a little bit more than I do even. So...
Yeah, Tony will definitely do it justice. He's a fantastic artist.
Oh, yes. Phenomenal. So, another news, El Bovine Muerte, page number 2 posted. Did I already mention that?
No.
Okay. So, page number 2 posted. Page number 3 is going to be put up next week. And I'm in the finalization stages for the Patreon. Patreon or Patreon?
I hear Patreon. And you've asked me that on this so many times.
Every time it's mentioned. So, the Patreon.
Patreon.
The Patreon.
Yeah, pronounce it however you want.
Yeah, whatever.
I think people figured out.
Right.
Based on the previous conversations we've had, I think they have.
What is Patreon?
It is kind of a monthly recurring Kickstarter in ways. So what you do is you say, okay, this is what I'm creating. These are the things I'm creating. So at the moment I'm doing... on a weekly basis, I'm doing El Bovine Muerte, and I'm doing the podcast.
Right.
I'm going to have another webcomic launching towards the end of this year, possibly in the summertime, and so that will be added as well. But
what is that going to be about?
Well, hold on, I'll tell you after I'm done with this.
Sorry.
But what it is you put up what you're creating, and you can do it per project, or you can just do it as you as the individual.
Okay.
And say, these are the things I'm creating. But this is the goal you have. Like, okay, so after I've hit this much, I can give my artist a pay raise, right?
Okay.
After I hit this much, I can put issue number 2, 3, 4 into print, right? If I hit this much, this will fund the graphic novel, whatever, right?
Okay.
So, and there are people who do like, after I hit this much, I no longer need to put advertisements on the website. So there'll be no ads after this much, right?
Okay.
Say you really like El Bovine Muerte, and even though it's a free-to-read webcomic, you don't mind paying a little bit to have it be something that can still consistently come out, right? So you go to the website and you sign up and you say, okay, I want to pay $2 a month to help keep this around. And for $2 a month, maybe what you get is you get to see the page fully lettered, colored, everything ready to post a week ahead before anyone else does. And maybe that's the reward you get. So they really push trying to make as much as possible digital rewards on there. Mm-hmm. So you really need to think digitally when you do one, but there's no reason you can't occasionally offer a physical reward too.
Right.
So you can do it like Kickstarter in that once you've hit a certain amount, you have enough to produce a physical good and you can send it out to all your patrons. So there are people who view it as a tip jar, and there are people who view it as, this is like patronage, like back in the Renaissance days.
Right, exactly. But it used to be that artists had basically somebody who was their patron.
Right.
And that's something that's kind of gone by the wayside, but they did that for hundreds of years. So.
And Kickstarter is releasing a program, I think it's still in pilot mode, but I could be wrong about that, that's called Drip, which Robert and I have talked about that name previously on the podcast, because as much as I love Kickstarter, I gotta say the name Drip is horrid.
Yeah, it's not very good.
They're doing it they really sell theirs as a community building tool. So build your community around this property, and then when you launch a full-on Kickstarter, you already have these people who are your patrons on Drip who will be ready to, help you out with the funding of whatever it is.
Huh. That's smart business for them to lead one into the other.
It is. It's very smart, and there's not an easy way to do that between Patreon in Kickstarter.
No, you'd have to post
Right.
on there to tell them to go to this other site.
So I am contemplating, when it's out of pilot mode, starting a drip as well. I don't see a reason you can have both. I know that it's going to be highly unlikely the same person wants to donate to both.
Right.
But if you're pulling in two distinctly different audiences,
And if people are only going to one or
Right.
the other. Because
Yeah.
I've never been to Patreon. Almost every YouTube video I watch, at the end they say,
is supported by
support us on Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
So
But
Patreon's becoming kind of a well-known big thing then.
it's
It
an easy
is
thing for people to
within
fund
the
you
creator
to keep
community.
making stuff.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
help us make our
fascinating.
videos every
Yeah.
week or every month.
Right.
Sort of thing.
So, and if somebody can kick in $1 for something they truly enjoy, you know, and
Right.
keep it coming out every single week or every month or whatever it is, you know, there are two different ways that a creator using it can do it. They can either do it to where it automatically charges this much every single month, or they get paid per update. So I don't really like the paid per update method, because you might piss somebody off if you all of a sudden do like 8 monetized
Right. Updates.
updates a month. You know, I'd rather just have people know exactly what they're going to be paying every month so that they can expect it, you know.
Right.
But yeah, if you have $1 a month that you're not using, consider supporting somebody, soon to be me, on Patreon. So what the new webcomic is going to be about is actually something Robert and I have discussed previously in the podcast. It's a lot different than anything I've ever done, because it's actually going to be more of a comic strip format. And it's very Calvin and Hobbes inspired. But I'm taking all the Darkslinger characters and making them into children. And this is going to be more of a, like, kids adventure based, you know, very much like Calvin and Hobbes or Peanuts or anything like that. It's not going to have some big overarching narratives that, you know, are dramatic and full of, even if the characters are essentially the same as those characters that have those adventures, you know.
So it's just going to be something fun and goofy.
It is fun and goofy.
It's like
and,
the Peanuts version of Darkslinger.
yeah, or the Calvin and Hobbes version, yeah. Yeah, so far, Patrick is my artist on this one. He did pinups of Yule and Valentine's Day that have been published on El Bovine Muerte so far. He's actually done a couple more, but I haven't published them yet. And he and I got to talking, and he's handed in character designs for 4 of the characters so far, and they look fantastic. He's currently working on Sally and the Pauper, so I can't wait to see the two of them.
Oh, they're going to be cute.
But he has designed the whole Ghost Assassin cast so far, and Lay Mime, and I showed you guys those earlier before we started recording.
So is this going to be like a mix between your more mature stuff and funny? Like, is it going to have both of those, or is it going to be more towards
it's not
the
going
funny
to
part?
It's going to be a lot more towards the funny part. So you're going to get
More like an age range question.
This is going to be something that I wouldn't have a problem giving to an 8-year-old.
Okay.
So there are going to be references to the more adult comics that these characters appear in, but it'll be more like tongue-in-cheek references. It's not going to be something that you give to a kid and they instantly want to go hunt out that comic and read something they shouldn't be reading. You know, I'm not doing it like that. It's just more of like an Easter egg for people who are enjoying both. You know, they enjoy this comic and they enjoy the adult versions, you know.
Do you
Fun
think
for
you're
the
going-
whole family.
Do you think you're going to give the fans a little preview of what those characters
I'm
will
actually
look like?
going to be posting the character design for Lay Mime on Instagram, which will also make it auto-populate to Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr at some point this week.
Oh, okay.
And
So
then
we have
I'm
that
going to
look
be,
forward to.
I'm going to be posting the character designs for Ghost Assassin characters the following week. So
All right.
I'm going to slowly start putting these out there as something I'm going to be doing. I'm putting it out there to get the audience excited prior to the launch of this series. Yeah, is there anything you want to talk about your experience at the library show?
It was way better than we expected.
Oh yeah, definitely.
A lot of people moved through that library.
Mm-hmm.
It was huge. It was really nice.
Adam said it was a fantastic library.
My friend that works there, she said it's one of the nicest libraries that is in
believe
the
that.
whole area.
It looked like it.
They even had a little like donut shop thing in it.
So he was saying like a little coffee shop or something.
Yeah. Get your coffee and donut, read your book. There were people waiting in the library to get into the library, not to get to us. They were waiting to get to their books before the library even opened. They had the gates closed and everything.
Are you serious?
People loved that library. The parking lot was packed all day.
That's good.
Yeah, it was fantastic. There were so many people who came up that I don't even think had any notion that there was a comic event going on. They were just going by the library just to go.
Yeah.
And then they saw that, so they came up and wanted to check it out.
He enjoyed a nice speech by some guy. I don't remember his name.
This is a co-creator of iZombie.
There you go. That guy. He was very excited to listen to him.
He was doing a really good job.
Yeah,
Like
I heard
enjoying
the
the
comic
people.
is
But it
fantastic.
it seemed like everything that he had to say about like the industry was already shit that Adam had told me, so it was like re-listening to it, yet he was so happy to hear it again.
It's one thing when I'm the one talking about it. It's another thing when I get to hear someone else talking about it, okay?
It's like positive reaffirmation, you know.
Yeah.
So you and I are like, yeah. Oh, now this guy's saying it. Oh, now this guy's saying it. But, you know, he's like, this is what I'm talking about. You hear me? I talk about this all the time.
He gets it.
He gets me. He understands where my brain is coming from. So, you know.
Should have wanted to be friends with him.
That's why we're just like the low peons in the totem pole of life.
I guess.
I don't think that's quite 100% true, but sure, we'll go with that.
Just 90%?
I was going to say 94, but... Kate, as long as we have you on the podcast, why don't you talk for a moment about what all your duties were? And, you know, people may not know what an editor for comics does.
Okay, so I guess I'll start with a little bit of backstory here. As you know, Adam likes to find the usefulness in everybody, and I think that he was going,
I do.
Oh yes, yeah. Like saying,
It's
hey,
more out of just trying to get you to do something
right,
for him.
You're my friend. You're gonna go to this con. You know? Go pick me up some bubble wrap. You have wheels. $5. You know, and you know he likes to find hidden talents. I guess so. We've been friends for years and years, and
yeah, we've known each other since like third grade.
Third grade, yeah. I think that it was El Bovo Muerte. You were going over some pages of Nick, the first artist that you had
Yes.
on that, and you
That
were
would be
just
correct.
pulling your hair out.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of hair you have. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah, I got a lot of hair at
It's
the
very
moment.
fetching, and I just don't know what to do with this, and I don't know how to explain to him, and this isn't working, and the pages aren't flowing, and I was kind of like, well, you know, how about if you tell him to make this like this, or, you know, move this like this, or, you know, you can have him, and he's like, how do you even know what you're talking about? And I said, well, when I was about 16, I did a little externship for Dark Horse Comics in their editing department, and he was surprised because he hadn't known that.
No, I did not know that.
And he immediately
we went
decided,
to school together at that time.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that.
And he immediately decided that you know, he was going to pick my brain, doing some small amount of editing for El Bovo Muerte, and then kind of branched off into the other ones that I did, which include Ghost Assassin and a little bit of, well, the Principalities,
Mm-hmm.
Diary of a Dead Man. I did some work with Stefano Cardacelli with some of the work we did with him.
Yeah, Chronicles Von Helsing.
Chronicles.
You did the editing on the... I think I did issue number 2, I think.
Yeah, you did the stuff with Tony.
You did... Well, Tony was issue number 1.
Right.
But, and I did the editing on his covers. Not that there ever needed to be any.
No,
But
Tony needs really...
I think you did the editing on issues number 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah, that
Chronicles,
sounds right.
Plus the Sally special that Joel did.
Yeah, I've worked quite a bit with Joel. Joel is a fantastic, phenomenal artist. He's very good at sequentials, so that makes it easy. We were kind of discussing how sequentials can be difficult.
We were discussing off the podcast.
Yeah, off the podcast. Sometimes sequentials can be difficult for artists because you have to show motion without having it be motion. And some people can get that.
Doing sequentials properly is almost like telepathy. That when you look at a panel and there's a panel right next to it, there's moments that's passed in between them, and your brain has to automatically fill in the gap between what's there and what's right next to it as you're reading it. So a proper sequential artist can make you see what doesn't exist and have your brain fill in the gaps.
Right, you don't actually need the words to tell you the flow of the story.
Right.
And so as an editor with comics especially, one of the things is that you have to make sure those pages flow. I did edit some of the storyline as well, but not as much as I would actually have to do. More like
not as much as you would have to do if you worked for Marvel or DC, I'm sure.
Right.
I don't like being edited.
He does not.
So I'm fine with input, but
but you are a fantastic writer, and you actually don't need a whole lot. A little bit of grammar here and there, and
yeah, if I'm going too fast. One of the things I do is transpose names at times if I'm going too fast. If I'm writing a panel that has both David and Todd in it, I might accidentally write that Todd is the one stating this dialogue. As I'm the letterer, it doesn't matter as much, but if the artist is going to draw the character with their mouth open as if they're speaking, it might be problematic if they never speak in that panel.
Exactly.
And so that is something I do, is I transpose names, especially when I'm just going super fast on something.
Right. So with the writing, it was more just going through and spell checking and basically seeing what was going on and making sure that the script would make
that I put
sense to the artist.
or staring correctly. You know, that's one that gets screwed up a lot.
It does, yeah. But so a lot of that is just proofreading.
Mm-hmm.
And then we send the artist the script, and then it's their job to interpret it into pictures.
Right.
So a lot of that was just making sure that what was being written versus what was being drawn were able to be transposed properly.
Right.
And then as far as the rest of it goes with the artist, it was just making sure that as a reader, it would be clear what was happening and what was going on. Or if there had to be a specific positioning of a person or who was speaking, if their mouths were open, it would have to be things that were in the room that might necessarily have something to do with the storyline having to be there. Characters' clothing being drawn correctly. So it's just kind of like proofreading for the most part, and then letting them know what needed to be corrected in different instances. So I did a lot of that with the artists. I worked a lot with the artists on that kind of thing, making them draw and redraw panels. Mm-hmm. Sometimes quite a lot. There was a couple of times where Adam and I actually would have to take pictures on our phones and send them to our artists to get the positioning right, or to show them what specific items might be that they might not know. We work with a lot of foreigners. We had an artist
that was having a big problem drawing David holding a sniper rifle correctly.
Right.
And so I took a picture of me holding a broom and said, look, this is the basic positioning.
That's the position we need. And then we sent him pictures of...
You had taken an image of me standing over Alex while he was down on all fours, and I've got my foot on his back, and I've got my hands up in the air diabolically, and that image was used for the cover of Principalities #3 that Marco drew that had Metatron standing over defeated Amon.
Right.
So that was one of the reference photos that we needed to take for that.
So, I mean, it's a lot of behind the things, very meticulous. I would say some of the artists might think that I was a little over meticulous at times, but at the same time, I've had several of the artists tell me thank you.
Right.
That they feel like that it's made them a better artist in the long run, even though I made several of them
hate you.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure not.
It's okay.
I'm sure none of them hate you.
To not necessarily be hated, but, you know, to be good at it, you have to be stern. You have to figure out a way to talk to them and explain what the idea is and what you're looking for. And then after that phase with the initial art, and then they do the inks and then taking it to the colorer. We have some amazing colorists. Cecilia, for one, is just phenomenal.
Yes, she is.
Phenomenal artist, phenomenal colorist.
And her colors that she's doing on Lady Death right now look fantastic.
Yeah, and what she's done with Ghost Assassin are also just have improved Joel's work to a level that I was not expecting.
Yeah. No.
And when you get the art back and you look at it and you're like, yes, this is exactly it. That's the moment where you just feel really proud that you've been able to help with a project. But yeah, sometimes the colorists get a little, they think, a little fun here and there. And sometimes, like with especially Ghost Assassin, we had a couple of colorists that like to lose a little bit of bright
Yeah, we
bright
had
colors,
a few
purple.
problems with a few colors. Not Cece, she didn't do this. But a few of the colors, I don't actually think there need to be any corrections with what she
Not
turned in
Cece, no. She's
for in the cards. But a few of our colorists like the color purple a bit more than I did. So
Oh yes, we had one that was just
there was one colorist who every single page got turned in had some purple highlights in it
and
somewhere.
so I would basically have to circle it and be like, turn it blue, turn
Right.
it green, turn it red, turn it
any
anything.
color but this awful
There was
purple
this
that you
one
keep sticking
spread
it everywhere.
we had in one of the books that like there was like 10 different shades of purple.
Right?
Do you remember?
Yes, I
and
do.
I was like, what is happening here? It's like Carnival. And
Right.
we had to I'm literally not even kidding.
I mean, to be fair, that colorist was from Brazil, so it is
But we
possible.
had to, and so there's that aspect too, to where you're like, oh no, this person always wears black. This person always wears green. This person needs to have this specific color of blank, color of suit, color of tie, because that is the color associated with this particular person.
Right.
Like Lei Mime always has the black and white with
Right.
the yellow fleur-de-lis. We have to make sure that these are always in place and that they're always colored in the correct manner,
Right.
so that you don't lose anything from the story. Because you may not notice it as a reader, but you will if it's not done properly. It'll pull you out of the story.
Right. You'll notice it.
Have you had anyone make your books too bright and cheery?
Well, we do color samples before anyone gets hired. I mean, you have to show me what my characters are going to look like under your pen, be it a sequential artist, a cover artist, or a colorist before I'll hire you. So, not that I ever hired, but have I got submissions that were way too bright and cheery? Yes, actually, several times.
And then you're like, I'm not this happy.
Right.
Do it again.
And
Ghost
one of the
Assassin,
things
you
that
have
she
to have
saved
those
me the
darker
most time
colors.
on.
With almost everything, it's a dark color. You need a dark
Right.
theme.
You have to have that dark theme to carry through the book. It's important for this tone. That's part of what you're looking for as a reader in this. Is there's this dark tone to the whole story. It's gritty. And so you need to set that with the color tone. And if you have these fuchsias or bright greens, it's not going to lend itself well to the story, because
Right.
everything has to be muted.
Unless, of course, they're at like the Afterlife floral shop.
Right.
Then it's fine to have it there or something like that. But there are elements that can be bright and cheery. And those elements just build up to the dark spots. You know what I'm saying, Mel?
Right. It's like setting the stage. It's like in a movie. Like
Yeah,
if
it's like
you
the
have
calm
a
before
bright
a storm
color,
sort of thing.
you are automatically drawn to that. So if you had like all this dark and then like a bright red rose, that's what you would focus on. And then you would know that that was an important element to the story. And so knowing when to bring that in is important. And so I'd say that was, I did a lot of the submissions as well, like you were talking about. And
Yeah, that's actually one thing I want to touch on, because you saved me a ton of aggravation and time. I never particularly enjoyed doing the submissions, and that always seemed to be something that you did. And when I put a call out for artists, it's not uncommon to get up to 100 submissions.
Oh yeah, and just rifling through all that and finding the gems or people that you would think maybe they won't work for this submission,
right?
But they might work really well on
right.
this other book, and putting them in a different file and filing all this system, and it's very tedious, meticulous work.
And
so
sometimes
if you like it,
you just get the weirdest damn submissions, and so me not having to deal with those made me so happy, because like I don't remember if you were on as a submissions editor or not yet, but I had got the submission from this girl who sends me like this whole resume. Everything's typed out very nicely, all this stuff. She attached her best 3 samples, right? And then I go to her DeviantArt page, and the cover image for the DeviantArt page has nothing to do with her art. It's this huge image of her boobs.
Just like a picture or
Yeah,
drawn or
like
what?
just a picture of her just standing there topless. Like, hey. And I'm like, this just seems weird if I'm going to look at your art, because it would have been different had any of her stuff been geared towards photography. But this was all trying to be, if I remember right, she was actually trying to be a comic colorist. And so there's nothing on her DeviantArt page towards artwork. There's no erotic nude figures on the DeviantArt page, nothing like that. It's just like the cover image, just this huge boob shot.
She wanted to get
like,
your attention.
Right? Instead, I was just kind of like, this is kind of weird. Kind of weird. And I'm not sure like how I feel about that. But, you know, there were a lot of other instances where doing the submissions just aggravated me, because like there's this one guy who sent me this pitch that I could not tell you what the story was exactly, but he wanted to have Jesus be brought back through gene splicing, but Jesus was a bad guy now, and he wanted to fight these characters, and like it kind of seemed like something a 10-year-old would write out, right? And if it had been a 10-year-old, it would have been great, right? But it wasn't. It was a 40-year-old, you know, and he sent this in for a submission for Ghost Assassin. I'm like, well, Ghost Assassin has nothing to do with anything religious, so I'm not going to be buying the script from you. And at that time, I still individually responded to everybody who sent a submission, which isn't something I feel the need to do these days. If I want to work with you, you're going to hear from me. It's as simple as that, right? But he had sent this, and I just sent back a thing like, I don't know why you're pitching this for Ghost Assassin. This has absolutely nothing to do with that. And he's like, well, that's a fantastic part about this story, is that it would work if you put Wolverine in it. It'd work if you put Gambit in it. It'd work with your characters. It'll work with any character.
Was your character going to fight Jesus?
I think so.
Oh.
And I was like, but I said,
you're
I
gonna win.
couldn't discern what the story was exactly. And so I'm just like, well, you know, you can tell you're a bad writer. And I wasn't trying to be mean. I was just trying to give him some advice. I'm like, you can tell the mark of a bad writer if they write something any character can go into. Every story should be specific towards the characters that are in it. And every, you know, character should be specific for the story they're in. Vice versa.
Jesus was specific to his story.
Jesus was very specific to his story. I've seen him used in other stories, and sometimes to okay effect, and sometimes just like, my God, why did you do that? So he sent me back a message stating that he guessed I wasn't ready for that level of controversy yet.
You weren't.
Apparently. I'll agree with him on that. I was not.
Maybe now you are, and if he's listening, he should send that again.
No, thank you. So, in any case, she dealt with all the submissions. So, sometimes that might have meant having a submission passed on that I might have messaged the person and worked with a little bit. But most of the time, it got rid of everything I didn't want to take the time to look at. And then she would call me up after she had it narrowed down to 5 or 10 and be like, you know, these are the people I think you need to look at and tell me what your thoughts are.
Yeah.
So, do you want to talk at all on the submissions, Eddie?
Oh,
Or
you know,
about like what the duties of an editor are for a small company, at least my small company when we were at conventions?
Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, I went to a ton of cons. I'll start with the what it was for being kind of your editor, besides what I've touched upon, because you know you have one editor and they basically have to scrutinize everything, and that's
Right.
what it is, scrutinizing everything. But besides that, as the submissions editor, one of my duties was going around to all the cons we went to and kind of scouting talent, which I found quite a bit of really good stuff out there.
Oh, yeah.
So just meeting different artists, meeting different writers, just meeting different, all sorts of different people. It was an amazing experience. I love doing it, and just basically talking about their art. I mean, I love art. I've been to art school. I did editing. I really like art history. So I mean, all of that stuff is really fascinating to me. And so I enjoy talking to people about their art and what makes them want to do it and what kinds of different art they can do. In the comics world, it seems like people are not always just stuck in one style. And
Right.
So I find that really interesting. They're very varied. They can pick up different types of styles that they can do. And that's not something you see in a lot of fine art type. facilities. It's like, okay, I'm a painter and I stick to this one style and I do it this way.
Right.
And this is how I do everything. In the comics world, they're well, I can do kind of this goofy style. I can do this serious style. I can do a very, modern
or working
style.
with different mediums.
Right. Yeah. And
like Alan Bennett, he
right.
does his pen and ink, he does his digital work,
right.
and then he does scratchboard,
right,
which is quite different. And he's
and
even
I have
done
a piece of his
pointillism.
scratchboard. Yeah, pointillism is very fascinating.
Yeah, you've seen his pointillism story.
I have,
right?
yes.
Yeah, and I actually thought that was some of his best work.
Yeah, he does some pretty
time consuming though. Pointillism is the dots, so there's no lines in it; it's just dots.
Oh, that sounds like it just takes
very
forever.
time consuming.
Very time consuming.
But it can be. I mean, it can, the results are.
It's what Gustave Doré did all of his artwork out of, right?
And so it's time consuming, but when it's done right, it's phenomenal.
There's
and you can look
not
at it
many artists that do it these days.
I guess he already spent so much time scratching little pieces away off of the. Off of all
the
that
crazy
stuff.
thing though is I swear he's faster at the scratchboard stuff than he is at pen and ink stuff.
Yeah,
maybe.
But yeah,
probably.
when you're doing signings or a convention with him, he puts on his white gloves, and that means it's time to start scratching
it's business
things.
time. Yeah,
And he gets out his little X-Acto knife, and he starts scratching away at that image. And I don't see what he's doing at first, but eventually he's always got, and he puts a lot finer details in his scratchboard work than he does his pen and ink, because you see the pen and ink stuff, and it doesn't have the same nuances like. In the scratchboards, Corax, you can always really see the definition and the line weight.
Oh yeah, I mean it's fantastic.
So working with different mediums, working with different styles.
Right. So
and then of course there are some artists who are stuck in one style that continuously doesn't work for them.
Yeah, that does happen. I mean, that happens in anything you work in.
Right.
Any industry you work in, there's going to be people that are just, this is how it's
right.
done, and this is the only way to do it. But with comics, people are more varied. And so I would go around and scout talent and bring back Adam little snippets and little postcards and little this and that and talk to them about whether
business
they would be
cards.
interested in when expanding, working with other people. And in the comics industry, people generally are pretty interested in trying new things. So that was one of them. And then as the submission editor, which Adam found to be aggravating, I found to be, it's time consuming, but I enjoyed it because it's just like treasure hunting. You go through and you find, okay, this is good, this is not so good, this is terrible.
I think the thing that aggravates me
is...
about it is I don't feel it's the best use of my personal time.
Probably.
I should be writing, or I should be figuring out a new marketing strategy, or I should be figuring out something on the business end.
Or you should be writing.
Yeah.
Or you should be writing some more.
Yeah. Well, I need to run the business too.
Right, but
if
you
I
need
don't
to
run
write.
the business, then no one's going to.
We need you to write. So you need to write. You're a writer. Write.
I write. I do write. Calm down.
But I enjoyed it. Some where you're just like, wow, this person is so good. Why are they coming to us? Like why are they doing, like, they're so good. Why do they want to work for you?
Yeah, why would they want to work for you?
But
hey, that's something I question all
the
time.
We'll take it. Yeah. We'll take it. We'll do it. Let's do this. And we found some really fantastic artists that way. And it's just part of the deal. Like, when you're looking for people, you've got to look through stuff, and necessarily this, like I said before, like with doing the submissions, you just I would just take little piles and I'd be like, oh, this artist would be good for this, or this artist would be good for this. They might be saying, oh, I want to be the Ghost Assassin artist, but really they are more inclined to be something else.
Right. They might have submitted for one book, but they're better for another. I actually found Marco through a submission for Ghost Assassin.
Right.
And the pieces he did for Ghost Assassin were phenomenal.
They were phenomenal, but
they ended up being used for the first Ghost Assassin Kickstarter.
Right.
But when I saw them, I thought, what you're really going to be good for is Diary of a Dead Man.
And I don't think you had the script written at that point.
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had actually written Diary of a Dead Man out originally as a novel.
I actually think I remember you telling me that.
So it was one of the few things I ever did that wasn't meant to be a comic to begin with.
Right.
But then as I started writing it, I wanted it to be a comic. So
well, and then we found Marco, and
Marco was found after I'd written the first script.
He's one of a kind.
He did that poster that you have of it.
Yes, Marco
That's
has done.
the only thing I've ever seen.
The only Diary of a Dead Man artwork that has ever been done has been done by Marco. Oh, that's not completely true. Nick did do a early preliminary design of Death.
Oh yes, that's right.
He was never supposed to be the artist for Diary of a Dead Man. We were at a convention. I had told him the story behind it, and he was inspired to do a piece. With the exception of that, though, every bit of Diary of a Dead Man artwork that's ever been done has been done by Marco.
I've only ever seen the one.
Which one?
The poster that you have of it.
I sell 2 posters at conventions.
I only remember
and
one.
You've seen more than one, actually, because you've seen the cover that's the takeoff of the Piata, where the character is laid out across Death's lap.
That's the one that I remember.
And then you have seen the image that's on my banner, where he is knilled out in a graveyard and she's standing behind him.
Oh, I forgot about
and
that.
And then
image.
you have also seen the piece that's used in another one of my backdrops.
You can't tell me what I've seen.
I can, as a matter of fact, because you keep saying, "Oh yeah, I remember that." So
I said it once.
It is the morgue drawer that's being pulled out, and it has death reflected in the morgue drawer.
Fantastic.
When we were at Crypticon, a bunch of people had asked where the poster was for that one.
I remember that question.
I had not produced that as a poster because I just hadn't. I just thought of it as a comic cover, and so we kept getting asked that, and I was like, well, if I go back to Crypticon, I guess I better produce some short run printing of a poster of that.
Well, it's the morgue. Those people like that kind of stuff.
But,
they do. That's true.
But we had Joel, and Joel is so perfect for Ghost Assassin.
And Joel actually submitted for Ghost Assassin.
Yeah.
So he got put on the title he submitted for.
But there are so many great artists that work for Darkslinger. Adam really has managed to cull the cream of the crop. He really has. Being able to work with people like that is just so cool. It's so rewarding. I just love it. So yeah. Do you have any questions about what an editor does?
No, not really.
Not really.
Okay.
Editing was never.
It's not that exciting, I know.
No. Anytime I hear about editing, it's at work, and I'm like, I don't care.
Right.
This isn't my job.
No,
I don't read your guys' stuff.
We're just the little grunts in the back that are making everybody do the work. So, it's not, yeah.
Yeah, when editors doing their job properly,
Nobody
keeps
likes
the trains
them, yeah.
on the track.
You don't even
know, like somebody keeps the
you don't
train
even
on the track.
think about editing when you look at something or
Right.
watch something.
You absolutely don't.
You're not supposed to.
And
honestly.
that's the mark of a good editor.
Yeah.
Is if you don't have to be like, because have you read a book where you're just like, why is all this misspelling?
Or like it just doesn't flow properly.
It doesn't flow properly.
Right.
And it's aggravating to read the book. The storyline might be good, the plot might be good, but it's like disjointed in parts. And it takes you out of the story. And it's irritating. A mark of a good editor is
And
not
it's
having
also
that
irritating when you see something that's editorially driven.
So it's like Colder. It was just entire shit, but it looked really good.
Think that like when you're reading a Marvel or DC title and they put out something that's just fantastic and you're actually really enjoying it, really getting into it, and then all of a sudden in the middle of the trade paperback, Secret Invasion happened. And the editors told this writer, hey, you have to work in something for Secret Invasion. And they're like, but I don't want to. But you have to.
Yeah.
We're forcing you to. It's an editorial mandate. And then that issue is just complete shit.
Right. I don't agree
with that. And then the
with
series all of a sudden goes completely downhill from there. Until the
I
point
don't
that it
agree
gets
with that.
canceled.
Where you have to, if you have a story that flows so beautifully on its own and the art is so beautiful on its own, all of a sudden you have to shove something in, that doesn't belong there, and that's bad editing. And maybe that's the higher up saying, well, you have to, because we have to make this mix and match. Well, you can't always force it, or it's just
it's gonna read as forced.
Yeah. And nobody wants that. That's not enjoyable. Right. That's the antithesis of why you're picking up a comic or why you're picking up a book, or that shouldn't happen.
It's not creative.
No.
It's not letting something happen in a creative fashion.
Right.
Bad product placement. Is what you're saying.
Yes.
Sounds like.
Kind of. In a way, I guess.
I guess in a way.
That's what it sounds like.
You know
to
what
me.
the big events are, right?
No.
Okay, so like Secret Invasion was something Marvel did where all of a sudden they had a ton of Skrulls. The Skrulls are these aliens that are shapeshifters on Earth posing as a bunch of heroes, right? And it was a way for Marvel to get a get out of jail free card with any characters they had killed off and now wanted to bring back to life. Because the character that died was either a Skrull or, whatever.
Just a nice way to make shit up.
Right. But
editing continuity.
It would have been a fine story had it just been left to the writers who wanted to play in it, right? And when they first started doing these big events at Marvel, they used to call them "Hey, you want to plays" with all the writers, because they just put out a memo saying, "Hey, Inferno's going to happen. Who wants to play in this? Here's what it's going to be about. If you're a writer that wants to, throw something in story-wise, tell your editor or whatever," right? You can hear Chris Claremont and Nacinti talking about that in interviews. But they don't do it like that anymore. Nowadays, it's like, we're doing this big event. We're trying to make people buy 60 comics to enjoy this one storyline. So, hey, we don't care what your run is right now, whatever it is, put that on hold and toss in that some of your characters have been Skrulls all along, because Secret Invasion's happening.
Well, when you get to be such a huge company like that, all it is about money grabs.
Well, of course, yeah.
So,
but if
course,
you're trying to
decline.
sell creativity, it's not a smart way to go about it.
It doesn't matter if you're creative or not. You have such a huge establishment. You just throw shit.
It does matter, though, because Marvel's books went from an average of hundreds of thousands of copies down to 30,000 copies. And there's a lot of reasons for that, events being one of them.
Look at who owns them, though, in the end, right now, currently. If they
Disney,
if they wanted to do that, it doesn't matter. Disney will throw money at them and waste it.
Yeah, that's the whole thing, though, is like, how long will Disney be willing to put up with a portion of their company not being profitable? They're notorious for shutting down divisions and licensing them out instead. So it's not a smart move on Marvel Comics' part if they want to stay Marvel Comics, because Disney could easily pull the plug on that at any point and license those characters out to IDW, Boom, Dark Horse, whoever.
Oh, right now they wouldn't do that, though.
Why?
Because the movies are way too huge.
What do the movies have to do with the comics?
They know that people that haven't read comics, they'll be like, "Oh, hey, this movie's so cool. Let me go check out the comic."
There's absolutely no proof of that happening with Marvel Comics. There is with Walking Dead. There is with other properties. There is not with Marvel. There has never been proven translation between the movies selling comics.
I don't know. It just seems like something that will work for them, and they don't.
It
care.
seems like it would work if they try to make it work.
They don't even need to have.
But have you ever seen an advertisement in the Iron Man movies for going and picking up the comics? No, you see Iron Man will return in the Avengers.
Right.
That,
it would be easy. It would be easy to have one of the characters picking up a Spider-Man comic.
Right. And here's the reality. At this point, Marvel Comics has how many decades worth of stories that any movie director can pick up and take a look at and say, I'm going to loosely base this off this story.
And you know where
the stories that they're doing right now have nothing to do with the stuff that's being published today.
And they're no good because they have this thing where they do the everybody's
they can
the
just pull whatever they want from.
We know how much I read. So
I mean, X-Men Days of Future Past is based off a story that came out in 1982?
Yeah, in the 80s.
This Saturday, March 10th, we will be in Portland, Oregon at the Frankenstein Comic Book Swap. Come on by. We're going to be primarily selling discount trades and cheap comics starting at 50 cents, but I will have a small selection of Darkslinger products on hand as well. Tune in next week for more updates on how the Ghost Assassin Kickstarter is moving along in the fulfillment stage, what our next Kickstarter is going to be. Page number 3 from El Bovine Muerte number 4 is going to be posted this Wednesday. Check that out at the website, which is www.darkslinger.com. Find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, and Google+. I'm Adam Watson.
Robert Diaz.
Catherine Richardson.
Thank you for listening.